I like to bring two incidents, two episodes into your mind. So please, I'll read from one from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament. And after understanding about these two incidents, let me tell you that it will have a lot of implication, lot of application now in our lives, Christian life. So first we'll go to the Old Testament. That is from the book of Exodus. That's all connected with Moses. Okay. We'll read from chapter 3, Exodus chapter 3, and verse 1 to 1 to 4 we will read. Verse 1 to 4. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. You know the background of it. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, and he led the flock to the Horeb, that mountain. Okay, and verse 2. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. He looked, and lo, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. This was something very strange. And he looked, bush was burning, no doubt. Moses looked at the bush and he saw it burning, yet it was not consumed. This is something which you have to note down particularly. And Moses said, I will turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. So what is the great sight in that? The great sight is that bush is burned but it is not consumed. Something which is contrary to our normal understanding. That is why the incident became a strange incident. And when Moses saw it, it struck his mind. If something which is ordinary, and if something happens in the ordinary way, we will never notice it. Even if it is a great thing, we may not notice it. So, but what makes the incident, what made here the incident something very strange was that bush was, that's what I am repeating, bush was getting burnt, but then it is not reduced to ash. It's not consumed. It's very, very extremely strange. And that caught the attention of Moses, and then he moved forward to know what it is. So, like, we are all inquisitive. It all starts with our innocent inquisitiveness. That means we won't just want to know what it is. So, how it draws the attention is that when we observe something very strange. Okay, and then now look at the next verse. That's very important, verse 4. When the Lord saw that, he turned aside to see. When the Lord saw that Moses turned aside to see, God called him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. God could speak to him when Moses turned aside to see. It may be originating from his, as I said earlier, from his innocent urge to know and learn and understand the strange thing. But that is necessary. He did not ignore it. Like how many people do it. Even if something strange is happening, they just ignore it. At the most, they will say that may be an exceptional thing. You know, in our understanding, we have general thing. And whenever we have something strange, we will group it under the category of exception. Exception to the normal is a normal understanding. So what happens is that we will never pay attention to it. Our mind is sidelined then. That is the problem. But Moses, it was not so. Okay, that was a very good quality. When a strange thing has happened that caught his attention, he turned aside to examine what it is. Okay, I'll just stop there. Then we'll go to the New Testament. Yeah, before going to the New Testament, one more thing I would like to say about Moses himself. I will not read out, but just before that, chapter 2, it is written. The king's edict was that Hebrew boys should be killed. It was at that time only Moses was born. And then what happened? This very same Moses was picked up from the Nile river by Pharaoh's own daughter and given shelter. And he was brought up in the palace like Pharaoh's grandchild. Look at that. See, Moses became a great man of God, but I used to think how this faith has become so strong in him. I'm sure his mother must have narrated the stories as he grew up, no doubt. And his own mother was appointed as a nurse to care for him in the weaning stage. That's right. But then, this Moses has, as a small boy also, he must have noticed that the strange thing happened. Now, this King Pharaoh, he himself ordered that the Hebrew boys all should be killed. And against that edict, Hebrew boy is brought up by the king himself or king's daughter, being a grandchild. Look at that. Isn't it something extremely strange? It must have struck Moses. His very origin is a very strange origin, or his very existence is a strange existence. And his living and his upbringing are very, very strange. This may not have just gone out, he may not have skipped, or he may not have closed his eyes, from this very, very extremely strange thing. The very same king is bringing him up. Not that he is bringing up the boy without knowing he is a Hebrew boy. It is written, I'll just read out. Chapter 2 and verse 6, Exodus chapter 2 and verse 6. Pharaoh's daughter, okay, she took pity on him, on this small infant, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." This is one of the Hebrews' children. So Pharaoh's daughter knew about king's edict, her father's edict, and it's an order that is executed over the entire nation. And this daughter knew pretty well that this young infant is a Hebrew child. So it is not without knowing. And with all that knowledge, he is brought up by the king as a grandchild. Look at that. Isn't it something extremely strange? We have to notice Moses, these things, observation of the strange thing has deepened into very deep faith in him, in Moses. Okay, we'll go to the New Testament. We'll read one incident that has happened in Jesus' time after Jesus resurrected, and that is from John chapter 21. Okay, the first first paragraph. No, and as well as the second paragraph. I'm not going to read everything. You know the story. Peter took the leadership, and he, along with us, I think 7 other disciples, went for fishing, because Jesus was crucified and he was buried, and their leader is gone. Now, for their livelihood, they have gone back. This is the situation, and they cast their net. All through the night, they tried to get fish, and in the end, they did not. The thing is, it is written there in verse 5. Children, Jesus asked, of course, they did not realize that it was Jesus, resurrected Jesus. Children, have you any fish? They answered him, no. Thorough failure. All, despite working all through the night. You cannot say that in that sea there was no fish at all. They scanned through the entire area. Perhaps the catch could be less, but you cannot say that nothing is caught. That means if nothing is caught, means something strange is there. It's exceptionally strange thing. Okay, I'll leave the matter there. Let's go forward. Coming to verse 6, next verse. Jesus said, of course they did not realize that he was Jesus. cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. And so they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in for the quantity of fish. Such a large quantity just there by the side of the boat. That is early morning. You cannot say that nighttime fishes will run to some other place and then early morning they will come to the seashore area. No, not like that. You cannot, give some stupid reasons. You have to think this is really a strange incident. But you know what happened? Only Apostle John thought about it. We read it, verse 7. The disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, that is about Apostle John. Alright, okay? So that disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. Let me tell you, he realized, Apostle John realized, not even Peter. John realized that it is the Lord. How did, just think for a while. How did it occur to him? Only to John. I am 100% sure that he is the only one who thought about this strange thing that has happened in their life. All through the night labor, nothing. But then early morning, just by the side of the boat, 150 large fishes they caught, and they could not drag the net onto the shore. To that extent, it was very heavy. They had to call for the help for other fishermen to get it. That much heavy it was. Isn't it strange? Now, you got a big blessing and then you can take, you can go ahead with it and then you can rejoice over the blessing and then, but what happens is, you will forget about the strange thing that has happened. If you do not notice, see in Moses' case we have seen, the bush is burning and it not reduced to ashes. That was a striking point. Something very strange. Something abnormal you can say, something which is unusual. And in this case also New Testament, it was an unusual incident. Something extremely strange. But then, when you see that extremely strange thing, you should not neglect it. You should not ignore it. And actually, it should trigger your natural inquisitiveness to know how it is. Even before touching the fish and taking, you should think, why? Isn't it strange? If at all you say a word to you that it is strange, there you will strike the point. You will know that it is the Lord. This is the simple thing. Now, why I said these two examples, of course, from Moses' life as well as the life of the disciples, just to strike one point in our Christian life. When we look back, our stories, maybe 10 years, 15 years or 20 years or even more, we definitely must have had several such strange incidents happening in our life. But unfortunately, many of us may not have noticed it. Or at the most, we would have said to ourselves, oh, it is just mere coincidence. And in the language of science, we say random coincidence. Randomness, that's all, there is no reason for it. Random coincidence. And once you say that it's a random coincidence, you just ignore it. You take it normal. So by attributing that word random coincidence, you bring a very strange into a very normal thing. Because exceptional things can happen in the normal way. That's what we think. So exceptional is not an exceptional thing. Exceptional is brought into the natural category of things. This is how we manipulate the things. And therefore, if you do that, what happens is, even if the Lord wants to speak to you, reveal himself to you, you will never. Yes, Jesus will go, he will pass by you, touching you, but you will never realize that it is the Lord. That's how tragic it is. I tell my own testimony. I remember the job from which I retired, when I was to be hired by my department. I had to face an interview. Of course, interview call letter came, and then I went to the railway station and checked up for reservation. It was not available. I came home, thinking that the Lord is not leading me, so I don't want to go. I was very calm about it. Okay, then what happened? I came, I think in afternoon about 3 o'clock, I returned home. Within half an hour, one person came there, a young person came there. He was of my age, who was introduced to me by one of my friends. He was not my direct friend. He was actually a Nepali boy, and he was from a Hindu background. He was a Brahmin Hindu, and he turned to the Lord when he was in the college. That is how we got into friendship. Not that he became a good friend or like that. He was my friend's friend. But what happened is, strangely, this person came to my house around 3:30, and then he saw me as though I was to go out. So he asked me what the matter is. I narrated the story. This has happened. I went to the railway station. I returned. This thing, and he did not keep. He did not have a glass of water. What he did is, straight he went out of the house. He said he will go and try. I stopped him. Please don't go. But he would not. He would not listen. He would not apply. He went. What happened? By about 5:30, he purchased 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening. He came home, handed over to me a reservation ticket. It was to go to Madras, and he went to a different station, and he purchased the ticket for a special train, not for the regular train. A special train was there to go like half an hour later than my usual regular train. And he purchased. Then finally, I was under obligation to pay him what to do. Because out of his regard and love only, he did it. And so I paid the money. And then next day I went for the interview, of course, by the same special train. And I was selected, and I was in the job for about 25 years. And then, of course, I retired now. Fine. Now, when I look at that, not that now I recollect and say that it was a strange thing. At that time, when the dealing was going on, it struck my mind that it's something very strange, exceptional strange. So I decided in my heart not to go, because of the simple reason that reservation was not available. But this man came after half an hour, and he behaved in such a way. He was my distant friend only, and he just went. And he purchased for a special train, and then he brought. Isn't it strange? I say, after so many years, after several decades, I am narrating the story because it was extremely strange. I know that it was the Lord. I knew that it was the Lord. Saints, this is something which we have to when we go back to our stories, or even if it is happening in our life now, we have to consider, don't brush aside such strange incidents by telling that it is just an exception, or by telling that it is coincidence, or by telling that it is a random coincidence, or just happened like that. No. If you correlate the things, the series and the developments that have taken place in your life, the what I can say, the right turns and the left turns that you have taken in your life, if you link all the things, you will surely find that strange things have happened. They were all days of visitation. And if you have not realized it, I just request you, because I read now from the Old Testament and New Testament, two stories, as well as my own testimony. I just request you to consider your own life, and go back to your life stories and consider how God dealt with you. And when the moment one turns to the Lord, may be triggered by your natural inquisitiveness. Even if it is so, if you turn to the Lord, turn to know what the reality is, you are not ignoring the strange thing. I am repeating the same point again. If you turn to know what it is, you will hear the call. What is that? Moses. Coming to the New Testament, you will realize that it is the Lord. Strange thing. It is something. It is so stupendous. It is the Lord's dealing. How Lord deals with His children. But then, if the Lord passes by you, and if you don't realize it, how sad it is. Brothers and sisters, please consider this point, apply to yourself, and if you realize that you realize the visitation of the Lord in these circumstances, strange circumstances that have come into your life, I know you will be greatly built up in faith. Greatly you will be built up in faith. I found that it has happened in Moses. Very same Moses is brought up in king's palace. Look at that. Whereas the king's order remains there. His edict remains there that all the Hebrew boys should be killed. And that is, if he is hidden somewhere and brought up somewhere in an alien land, okay, it can be considered normal. But then, who is bringing Moses up? The very same king who ordered that all the Hebrew boys should be killed. Look at that. And not without his knowledge. He knew very well that he is an Hebrew boy. Very strange. And let such incidents that happen in our life help us build our own faith. Now, I cannot say what happens with you, what happened with you. I can think about myself and understand it, but you have to think. You take a little time. Go back to your stories. Your memory is so good. Go back. Right from childhood you think how, and you will know that Lord has led you in this manner. God bless you.